So let me get this straight. In a world where trucks have computers, lane assist, and more sensors than a fighter jet, there's still one rig from the early 1900s that's not only alive, but still working. Not in a museum, not in a garage, but out there, hauling, grinding, roaring like it's never heard of retirement. Meet the world's oldest truck still running, a living wheeled fossil that's rewriting the rules of mechanical survival. You'd expect something like this to be sitting behind glass, roped off in a dusty European museum with a plaque and a bored tour guide. But no, this truck lives on a farm in Belgium, and it still works. We're talking about a 1914 Cotin de Gouttes Type A, a pre-WWI French-built workhorse that somehow, over a century later, still starts, still rolls, and still moves goods the way it did when horses were more common than cars. This truck isn't pampered, it's not babied, it's used. Built during a time when roads were barely paved and suspension was a luxury, the Type A was part artillery hauler, part delivery mule, and part tractor, powered by a 4-cylinder engine that makes less horsepower than a riding lawnmower. And yet, it still pulls. Slowly, sure, but it pulls. It hauls wood, farm equipment, even feed sacks. This isn't a one-day-a-year show truck, it's a tool, a legacy, and its current owner treats it like a family member with arthritis. Now, still loved, still respected, and still expected to work. You fire it up with a crank, not a key, no electronics, no starter motor, just muscle and a bit of faith. You pump fuel by hand, you prime the oil manually, and when that engine finally rumbles to life, slow, uneven, but steady. It sounds like history, like every turn of the crankshaft is echoing through time. No mufflers, no filters, just raw, unfiltered combustion. The steering is mechanical, the brakes are mechanical. There is no power anything. You feel everything, every rock, every bump, every shift in terrain. This thing doesn't drive, it wrestles. And yet the guy behind the wheel, he's smiling because this truck connects him to a century of grease, grime, and grit, to a time when you didn't just operate a vehicle, you commanded it. Over the years, parts have had to be rebuilt, remade, or reimagined. The water pump, custom fabricated. The tires, sourced from vintage suppliers and occasionally retreaded by hand. The gearbox, still original. The body, patched, repainted, but not restored to showroom. This isn't about looking good. It's about staying alive. The truck wears its scars with pride, like a war veteran who still marches. What's wild is how little it's changed. The design is brutally simple: a chassis, an engine, a seat, a steering wheel, and a flatbed. That's it. And maybe that's why it's still alive. There's nothing to break that can't be fixed. No ECUs to glitch. No diagnostics to confuse. No software updates. Just nuts, bolts, oil, and know-how. And in that simplicity, immortality. Think about what this truck has seen. It was built before commercial air travel, before television, before World War II. It survived 2 global wars, the rise and fall of empires, the moon landing, the internet, and the birth of self-driving semis. And through it all, it kept moving. It's outlasted its designers, its factory, entire car companies, and somehow, 110 years later, it's still earning its keep. You might think it's just a novelty, something quaint, but out on that Belgian farmland, this truck still plays a role. Still gets dirty, still gets loaded. On market days, it hauls crates of apples and firewood like it's 1925, and people stop and stare because they can't believe it, because it's not supposed to be possible, because everything we've been told about machine life cycles says this should have been junked before the Cold War. But maybe that's the point. Maybe this truck isn't just old. Maybe it's a message that good engineering doesn't age, that a machine built with purpose, built with care, can survive centuries if we let it, if we maintain it, if we don't treat everything like it's disposable. In a world that tosses out smartphones every year and upgrades cars like fashion accessories, this one truck says, I'm still here. And here's the kicker: it still runs on its original fuel system, not retrofitted, not converted. That carburetor, handmade brass, still sipping gas like it's 1914. The radiator still cools the engine with old school convection flow. And the clutch, stiff as hell, but reliable like everything else on this rolling ghost. There's a reason you don't see trucks like this anymore. Not just because they're old, but because today's machines weren't built to last like this one. The 1914 Cotin des Gouttes was never designed for planned obsolescence. It was built in an era when things were over-engineered, when steel was heavy, bolts were thick, and everything had to be field repairable with nothing but basic tools. It wasn't just made to work, it was made to outwork everything around it for as long as possible, and it did. Every time the truck fires up, the whole barnyard goes silent. The sheep pause, the chickens scatter, even the dogs look twice. It's not loud in the way modern diesel trucks are loud. It's loud in a deep, ancient way. A coughing, rattling, mechanical growl that sounds more alive than half the vehicles on the road today. It doesn't idle smoothly, it lurches. It sputters, but it moves. And for a machine that's been through a world war, that's saying something. People from all over Europe have come to see it. Gearheads, historians, mechanics, skeptics. And almost every time they walk away in disbelief. Not because the truck's beautiful. It isn't. Not because it's fast. It really isn't. But because it's honest. Every part of it tells the truth. No plastic, no tricks. Just a 4-cylinder engine, a handbrake that feels like it came off a ship, and a frame that could probably survive a meteor strike. What's even crazier, the truck doesn't have a single digital component. No speedometer screen, no warning lights, no check engine indicator. The only check engine light here is a puff of smoke and a driver's gut feeling. Everything else, gauges, needles, knobs. And despite that, or maybe because of it, this truck has never once been bricked by a software bug or stranded because of a failed sensor. You don't plug it in, you know it. It's a time capsule that still breathes, but keeping it alive isn't easy. The current owner, a farmer in his 60s with forearms like railroad ties, has made it his mission. He spent the last 3 decades tracking down parts, rebuilding systems, and even fabricating components from scratch. He's got molds for the old brass fittings. He's made bushings on a lathe. He's replaced springs with ones from old artillery wagons. He says the truck taught him more than any mechanic's manual ever could. It breaks, he shrugs, I fix it. That's the agreement. There are no blueprints, no OEM hotline, just trial, error, and an almost religious respect for the machine. And that respect is mutual. The truck somehow always comes back to life, even when it shouldn't, even when a part shears off mid-run, or a tire delaminates, or the throttle linkage snaps on a hill. Somehow, some way, it gets patched up and keeps going, because deep down, it was made for war, and war machines don't quit. You'd think by now someone would have retired it, put it in a museum, called it history, but that's not what it wants, and the owner knows it. He said it before. The day I stop using it is the day it stops running, because for this truck, use is life. It was never meant to sit still. It was meant to haul, rattle, groan, and move forward, even if it's just to the market and back, even if it takes all morning to do what a modern flatbed could do in 15 minutes. Doesn't matter, because this truck isn't chasing time, it's defying it. And here's the part that hits hardest. There are kids on that farm, the next generation, already learning how to prime the fuel system, how to crank the starter, how to shift the truck's ancient gearbox without grinding every tooth. They're not afraid of it. They respect it. It's part of their lives now. And if they keep it up, this truck might just see 120, maybe more, long after the electric trucks have come and gone, long after the headlines have changed. This machine could still be rolling. It's not a truck anymore. It's a heartbeat, a century-old pulse of engineering, grit, and pure mechanical soul. The world's oldest running truck isn't just surviving. It's teaching us what endurance really looks like. No tech, no shortcuts, just nuts, bolts, and willpower. And as long as someone's there to crank it back to life, it'll keep going. One rattle, one puff of smoke, one glorious mile at a time.